Welcome to Grapplearts Radio.
Hey everyone, it's Stephan Kesting and the Grapplearts Radio podcast. And I'm just going to say right off the bat, if you haven't gone into iTunes or into SoundCloud or wherever you get this podcast and give a rating, if you do, and we meet on the street, I'll have an extra special thanks for you because that stuff's really important. So if you like what you're getting, go and give us a rating. I'll just say that right off the bat. But to earn your trust, today I've got a really cool interview lined up, or a really cool discussion with my friend James Foster. Now, James is a really big and really good black belt. So that's certainly one thing that we're going to talk about, but he's got a ton of other interests as well. You know, he's a huge comic book nerd. He's very, very tech savvy. So I think this is going to be great, but I want to start with the last podcast that we tried to do. I appeared on your podcast.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that was a fun conversation on the Spartan.
Yeah, that was awesome. Everybody enjoyed that one.
Well, I'm so glad. Yeah, I tried to pay it back by coming to do an interview with you at your school just south of Seattle.
Yeah, you tried to one up me and actually come out in person.
I tried so hard, but I was in downtown Seattle. I was like, oh, I've got an hour and a half to make it, I think, 16 miles. No problem to get there early, hang out, have a bite to eat. I'm in downtown Seattle and it starts to rain. No big deal. It happens a lot in Seattle. Then the rain turns completely sideways. Then it turns into snow. Then my entire windshield fills up with hail. And then it turns out there's a giant semi-trailer, truck and trailer flipped on the I-5, and traffic just comes to an absolute halt. It was like the forces that be were just absolutely conspiring against doing it in person this time.
Yeah, just wasn't meant to be. That was actually a tanker truck full of butane.
Excellent.
So they had to shut all of I-5 down up there, and I think you said you went like 300 feet in like 45 minutes or something at one point.
Yeah, that was in downtown traffic. So.
And then you add in the snow. Anybody sees snow up here, they kind of freak out. So it didn't make matters any better for you.
Yeah, we thanks to the miracle of technology and this Skype thing, which I'm happy that we have. So we'll have our chat this way. So most important thing, and this is a huge spoiler alert. So if you're a huge comic book fan and you haven't seen Logan yet, don't listen to this. What do you think of Logan? I know you've seen it. I know I saw it.
Man, I loved it. I thought it was the right way to do the character. A lot of us hardcore comic book fans have been waiting for them to portray the character and do it the right way, kind of give more that gritty, savage type of feel. So I thought they captured that really well.
Yeah, right from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely they worked that R rating very hard.
Yes. We're going to ride this horse into the ground. But it's funny. I mean, you would think that somebody who's got 6 claws total, and how many movies behind him, I'm not sure. There's not been a whole lot of blood, but really,
exactly.
If you've got comic book, if you've got people fighting with claws and berserker rage, there will be blood.
Exactly. So they finally gave it that R rating, and man, there was plenty of blood and visceration and everything else. So it was great. Mm-hmm. Also, the story was really well done. I thought it was it almost felt more like a serious movie or a drama, yes, as opposed to a comic book movie. So I thought that was kind of a unique angle that we haven't really seen in too many comic book movies to this point.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of another one that did the sort of drama and psychological thriller. I
guess Watchmen kind of tried a little bit,
Yes.
Watchmen was a darker, kind of more story-driven. But as far as like the Marvel movies, I don't really think there's been anything with that kind of tone yet.
Mm-hmm. I had a couple little beefs. I think the convoy of Hummers and other armored vehicles driving to yet another confrontation was done a few too many times. I think that happened 3 or 4 times. I'm like, okay, surely there's another way that you could set up a battle.
Yeah. And I didn't really think they made it too clear what was poisoning him.
I don't
until
think they needed to. I don't think they
yeah. So they kind of left you hanging on that, trying to figure out what was wrong with him. Mm-hmm. But they alluded to what it was. So I thought that was kind of left me scratching my head a little bit. But my wife picked right up on it. So, maybe I was a little too caught up in all the cool lopping off of heads and everything else to pick up the finer plot details.
Well, maybe on a second viewing we can criticize the story.
Oh man, yeah, I gotta.
I think all he needs is a good long rest in the ground, out in the bracing fresh air.
Oh yeah, he's not dead. Anybody who's looked at the comics is going to know that he's not dead. It's just taking him longer to regenerate everything. So that's nobody in comics is ever dead permanently.
Yes. Has anybody ever permanently died? I'm not sure. But of course, the Marvel movies and the latest, the X-Men movies, they're constrained by the actors getting older and older. So there has to be an element of death and rebirth. I mean, maybe these actors can't keep going indefinitely. Although, as CGI improves, maybe you can have Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine for another 85 years.
Yeah, you could. I mean, they're getting close. If you saw Rogue One, I mean, while there was still
young Leia, Grand Moff Tarkin.
A lot of work to be done. They still did a good job. Imagine what they're going to be able to do 5, 10, 15 years from now with that technology. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that they would be able to do that. I guess it just becomes a question of ethics and everything else as far as, owning the rights to somebody's likeness and everything else could get into some...
When ethics hits money,
interesting
I think ethics
territory.
rarely win.
Yeah, money will win for sure.
Well, what's really interesting is when this kind of CG technology, when you can do it on your phone. Because that's going to happen. I mean, right now I just had this idea the other day. As an intro for some of my YouTube videos, I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have like a James Bond opening sequence, with like the dancing silhouettes of naked girls? I don't know. It's just an idea. But the bottom line is that somebody on a $1,000 computer with $400 worth of stock footage, and After Effects, can probably put together something that would have been state of the art 15 years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
So, whereas 15 years ago, that opening sequence, I don't know, I'll throw $1 million out there for how much it costs to do. I don't know for sure.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, a lot of time that used to have to go into that with the limitations of the technology. And now, I mean, like you were saying, on our phones, it's crazy what we can do. You got, cameras on phones that can do 4K and do, you could shoot a actual projection quality movie on your phone now. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And I guess things like the Snapchat filters are the beginning of that whole CGI on your phone. Yeah. I mean, 5 years from now, I'll be able to, somebody will be able to type in, Stephan Kesting, hula skirt, top of Mount Everest, and some program that you can buy for $3 or is free will have me in a hula skirt on the top of Mount Everest, and it'll basically be indistinguishable from what it would really look like.
That's where things get interesting, right?
So, honest, honey, that footage wasn't me.
Yeah. I guess we should be careful with what kind of, enemies we make.
I need a drone following me at all times with a scrambling device so nobody can get clear footage of me.
Now you're thinking.
Yeah. Well, here, we'll do the startup. We don't even need to actually invent it. We just need to start a Kickstarter project.
There you go.
For the identity scrambling drone.
Yep.
And
I'm sure somebody's already working on it.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. We just need to have a better Kickstarter campaign than them.
There you go.
So
the power of social media, we can make it happen.
Yeah. Or alternately, then you don't need to run a school. You need to spend all your time training.
Yeah.
You just came back from California. Is that right? Was that a training trip?
Yeah, I went down for a training trip, and I also taught a seminar at my professor's school, the One Jiu-Jitsu headquarters down in Irvine, California. So I had a great time, got a got a lot of good training in, fine-tuned some things in my game before the Pan Jiu-Jitsu Championships coming up here. Oh boy, actually next week. So got a tune-up and had a great seminar. We actually had people from as far away as Scotland attend the seminar. So that was real. Yeah, they were in California, and they saw that the seminar was going on. And so, yeah, we had people from all over the place. It was really cool.
So it was a bit of a training camp for you?
Yeah, a little bit of a training camp and more just fine tuning, having my professor watch me roll with his top black belts and then seeing what I needed to tweak a little bit in my game before the competition. So this week will be the last really hard week of training before the tournament, and then I'll start tapering down to midweek next week and then rest a little bit the couple days before competition. So
what is training? You're right in the thick of it right now. So what does training look like? How many times a day are you doing it, and how long are you going, and how hard are you going?
On Mondays and Wednesdays, I train mainly in the evening, and I'll be doing pretty much nonstop 6-minute rounds for an hour and a half as my main training. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I train in the morning and evening. So generally in the mornings, I kind of see how my body's feeling and will adjust the intensity of my rolls depending on how much recovery I need. So Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are usually my really hard training in the evening. So it mainly consists of rolling. I don't really do any extracurricular conditioning or anything like that. I find that if I do that now, it kind of pushes my body a little bit too much with as much as I'm in there teaching and training every day. So I kind of have to walk that fine line and make sure I don't cross that point of diminishing returns.
Well, just for people listening, I mean, two things that need to be pointed out. One is that you're a really big guy, and two is that you're a successful competitor. I mean, you're a Masters World Champion.
Right.
So, what you're talking about. This isn't just, it is recreational because you're not getting paid for it, but you're a very successful competitor.
I know what works good for me. And I think that's the whole thing, is finding what works best for you. You can give all sorts of suggestions as far as what people should do, how they should train, and, what type of mental training things they should be doing and all these different things. But really, it's about finding what resonates with you and what works best for your body. So I've got that dialed in pretty good nowadays. I think back in 2013 when I took silver at Master Worlds, that was kind of the turning point for me, where I started to get everything dialed in, and I've had a lot of success since then.
Okay. Now, here's something I was thinking about the other day. Okay, first of all, how big are you? What's your body? How tall are you? What's your weight?
So I'm 6'5", and I walk around, when I'm competing, I'm probably around 280, 285. I've gotten up as high as 300 pounds, but that's not where my nickname comes from.
That's James 300 Foster.
Yeah, everybody thinks, that must be his weight, but it's actually because the beard, and somebody made the comment that I looked like Leonidas in the movie 300. So,
well, there could be worse comparisons.
Yeah. So that's
you look like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Thank you very much.
So that's where it comes from. But I have been up at 300 pounds, but I don't like training at that weight really, or competing at that weight. So even though I carry it well on my frame, I like being around 280, 285. So that's generally right around where I walk around at. Now,
one thing I was thinking of is that it seems that bigger high-level competitors, the heavyweights and up, don't train as often when they're in the final grind as the lightweight guys. It seems like the lightweight guys can get away with training 2 or even 3 times a day, whereas you get bigger, it seems like there's just more wear and tear on the body, and it takes longer to recover. Do you think that's true?
I haven't personally experienced it. I can push as hard as any little guy.
Can you push as often as a little guy?
I don't know. I'm in there 6 days a week usually. So, I mean, multiple training and teaching sessions a day. A lot of times when I'm not preparing for a tournament, I'm teaching and training 3 to 4 times a day or more if I have private lessons. Specifically in the 4 to 6 weeks leading up to the tournament of actual competition focused training. I don't know. I've never really thought about that. I know a lot of the people who are able to train that often may also be taking some additional supplements that help with recovery too. So I don't really have the benefit of that.
Just to be clear, we're talking about steroids and growth hormone and things like that.
Special vitamins. Yeah.
Special vitamins that you inject.
But, maybe little guys do have an advantage in that. I've never really thought of that. You bring up a good, interesting topic. But I feel if I really wanted to, I can push just as hard. But, I'm getting close to 40, so I'm trying to be a little smarter and listen to my body. I think one of the things I pride myself on nowadays with my training is injury prevention. Whereas back in the day, I would train like those little guys in preparation for something, and that would be when I would see a lot of people get injured, including myself. Was kind of overdoing it and not listening to the body, being young and pushing just because you can push versus
doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, just because you can do that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be beneficial for you. I think a lot of it comes down to perceived mental edge, to where you have more confidence because you killed yourself in the training. I don't know where that point of diminishing returns is for each person. But I think a lot of it, I think it's similar to, I think weight cutting, I don't always think weight cutting is beneficial. I think a lot of times it ends up hindering and hurting people more than it does help them when they get out there and their performance is affected. But I think when they do it right, they have that mental confidence, that edge, because they believe they're the biggest, strongest guy in their division. Right. So I don't know how much of it is actually the physical as it is the physical giving them that mental confidence to go in there and have the feeling that they're superior to everybody else at that point.
So maybe what we really just need is somebody following us around all day going, "You're the best. You're the best. You're the biggest. You're the strongest."
Well, the problem with that is if you don't believe it, it means nothing. So
I suppose the Roman emperors, when they were having a triumph, they'd have a slave behind them whispering, "Remember, you are mortal." But maybe they weren't whispering it that loud, and I'm not sure that at least the later emperors actually believed it. So it's kind of the opposite of that.
I always tell I have some students that are really high-level competitors, and I always, talk about the mental side with them, and I say it doesn't matter, I tell them, if you don't believe in yourself as much as I believe in you, it's not going to make a difference. So when you reach your potential and you see yourself in the way that I see you and recognize the potential that I see in you, you're going to be really dangerous out there. But a lot of people can tell them how great they are, or they can even be telling themselves how great they are every day and looking in the mirror and doing their affirmations. But if they don't actually deep down believe it, it's not really going to make a difference.
So all that time I'm spending staring in the mirror saying, "You are a sexy bitch," isn't actually paying off. Man,
I thought you were doing your Stuart Smalley from Saturday Night Live. You're good enough. You're smart enough. And doggone it,
people like me. Well, I do that too. I have a very long affirmation process every morning.
That's the important one.
Yes. So maybe another aspect, just to jump back to how often you can train. How physically big are most of your training partners?
I have a lot of big students who are in the like 6'3" to 6'5" or taller range, who are, brown belts all the way to black belts. So I have a lot of bigger students now who can keep me honest on my technique and push me. But I think at the end of the day, it really, the main benefit of having bigger or training partners as big as me to train with is that the leverage points and things change depending on the body type. So really, to me, it's all jiu-jitsu. I can, when I trained and I prepared for, let's say, most of my competitions starting at black belt, I started competing as a black belt in 2006. And all I had to train with was my blue and purple belt students who weren't anywhere near as big as me. And I was still able to go in and do well because I would open myself up to putting myself in bad spots and found ways to make the training beneficial and challenging for me in preparation for the competitions. So
can you give some very concrete examples? Like, what would you actually do on the mat?
So I would put myself, and I still do that now, not so much when I'm in the final phases of training because I'm trying to play my A game when I'm getting, close to the tournament, trying not to make any mistakes during rolling. But if it's just regular day-to-day training and I'm wanting to learn and grow from training with my students, regardless of what level they are, I'll put myself in really bad spots to where they've got a choke fully sunk, and then I'll see if I can get out. I'll put myself on the bottom in a bad position, see how long I can survive, see if I can recover my guard or whatever it may be that I'm trying to accomplish, and really see how far down the rabbit hole I can go and still come up with counters and things that I can do from there. So,
but doesn't that mean that sometimes your students tap you out?
Hey, absolutely.
Oh, no.
It occurs if you open yourself up and you actually roll with your students every day. And if you're giving your all to your students and teaching them everything that your students should be tapping you out. The only reason your students won't tap you out eventually is because either you're holding back from them or you're not rolling with them regularly. So my goal is for all my students to be able to tap me out one day, because I'm going to grow and get better from that. I'm not going to get better from just playing my A game and smashing them every time because I know their games because they came up with me. I'm going to benefit from teaching them how I'm catching them. And then I'm going to not be able to catch them in that same manner after a little bit of time. And then I'm going to have to come up with a different variation or a different way of setting up that technique or apply a completely different technique. So in that way, I grow and they also grow through that process. So,
and they get to go home doing a little happy dance, knowing that for the 20 times that you've caught them, that they've caught you one time.
Absolutely.
That's part of realistically, that's part of the game too.
Absolutely. And that's, people are only going to learn so much through constantly squashing their confidence. And, I mean, unless the person, has a real bad attitude problem that needs to be addressed and they've been told numerous times they need to take it easy or slow down or stop doing a particular dirty thing they're doing. Maybe then they need to be taught a little lesson, but to do that regularly to somebody, it's not beneficial. And maybe if you're a strictly a competition only school where you're trying to prove who's the toughest and you only the strong shall survive, I guess maybe that's the way to approach it, but that's not a very effective business model if you want to successfully maintain a academy with a great atmosphere and positive relationships with students who are happy to train there on a regular basis.
Oh, I don't know. You got your nickname, named after Leonidas. There's no no prisoners in the Spartan. Is it the Agoge? Yeah, I think it's.
You just got to kick everybody into the well, right? Kick everybody into the pit of death, and the ones that
this is Sparta.
The ones that can climb back out of the well, they can stay on the team, right?
Why do I get the sense that we're constant comic book allusions here in this entire conversation?
I always tell everybody I'm a big nerd, both literally and figuratively. Which, speaking of, we were at, my wife and I, every year our tradition is to celebrate our anniversary by going to the Emerald City Comic-Con in Seattle. So I just got back from spending Friday through Sunday up in Seattle at the big comic book convention. So
I have never been. I should go at least once in my life.
You need to do it. Yeah, you would definitely enjoy it. It's huge. There's so much great stuff to see. You would definitely dig it.
Is that the one? Is that the biggest one in Seattle?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's huge. It's actually 4 days. We only went Friday through Sunday, but it actually starts on Thursday and runs through Sunday. And they had all the big celebrities come to this one. Stan Lee was there.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. I got to get my picture taken with Rick Flair, which was pretty cool.
I saw that on Facebook.
Yeah, it was actually kind of sad because he wasn't in the area with the celebrities. He was actually just at a small table in the middle of one of the halls that had a bunch of the vendors in it. So I was really surprised to be walking through looking at all the different merchandise and then see the legend Ric Flair sitting there.
Does he need to pay for his own desk? Like, is it something that he rents and then makes the money back?
That's how the conventions work. The people have to buy their booth or their desk space that they use. So I'm assuming that he paid to be there, and then he was selling photo ops and signed prints there at his table. So, but it was really cool. I was like, man, that's a once in a lifetime opportunity. I got to get my picture with him.
I was a little bit disappointed that I forget what Ric Flair's signature move was.
The chest slap, or he did the figure four. It was like the figure four leg lock.
Well,
that was his thing.
Did you charge extra for that photo?
He wasn't getting up from his chair really for any of the photos, so you just went and sat next to him and did the picture. But
a lifetime of beatings in the ring.
He was very personable. It was really cool. I'm assuming it was his wife was there with him, and both her and him, they're like, wow, how tall are you? And I said, oh, I'm 6'5", and he looked up at me and he said, oh, you look like you could be one of the Seahawks football players. And I said, no, just
say yes.
I said, no, just Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And he's like, oh, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that's awesome. And my wife was like, yeah, he's a world champ. And he's like, oh, awesome champ, That's good. We did our picture, and so it was neat. He was very, very kind.
Well, in addition to the jiu-jitsu, you've also done a lot of karate.
I did karate, yeah. A lot of people don't know. I do put it on my resume there on my website. I actually hold a first degree black belt in a style of karate that is called Amka-jitsu. It was a form of American karate, but I always describe it as closer to Jeet Kune Do because we use things from a lot of different styles. It wasn't just strictly karate. We did things from judo and taekwondo and kung fu and you name it. The motto back then was if it works, we use it. So we used a lot of different things from different styles. So I did that.
Who's behind that? Who started that system?
I honestly don't know. It was somebody down in California, I believe. It's still around. There's still schools around under that system. And so I did that. I started when I was 10, and I did that for almost 10 years before completely branching off and switching to BJJ full time, because the if it works, we use it motto went out the window when Jiu-Jitsu came about, and some of the higher ups in that style felt, let's say, threatened by Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So that kind of put a little kink in their system when, us guys who were doing and dabbling in Jiu-Jitsu, trying to reverse engineer things from tapes of Royce Gracie in the UFC, were taking the guys down with a sloppy double leg, these guys who had been black belts for 20 years, and choking them out. It didn't sit well. Didn't sit too well with their egos. So that's was
not real fighting.
Yeah, that wouldn't work if I could do my death strike and take you out. So unfortunately, I actually was one of the black belt instructors at that school, and I offered at the time to go and pay out of my own pocket to learn BJJ and come and share some of what I was learning there at the school, because, hey guys, the motto's if it works, we use it, right? And I'll never forget the owner at the time. He looked at me dead in the eye and he said, that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he said, that's a fad, just like Kung Fu was in the 70s. And he goes, that stuff will be gone in a year or two. You won't even hear about that stuff anymore. So, boy, was he wrong.
Well, I agreed with him at the time. I thought it was super effective. I loved doing it.
Right.
I just thought that the physical beating that people take, and not so much the physical beating, rather the psychological beating,
right,
would be too much for the general populace to bear.
Yeah.
That if you and I are doing Kung Fu, I can imagine that my monkey steals the peaches and the cobra rips the throat, or whatever the hell the move is,
right,
would defeat you. And it's too deadly to spar, so we're never going to find out, but I can walk around full of that, essentially, fake confidence.
Yeah, I guess the key phrase there is imagine that you're doing all of that, right? So unfortunately, at the time, I was, he put an ultimatum to me and said, if you want to continue learning that stuff, you need to make a choice, and you either stay here or go and learn jiu-jitsu. So, I say unfortunately because it was sad at the time, because I'd been there so long and it was like a family. I had a lot of friends there.
And it didn't need to be like that.
No, it didn't need to be like that. And, but I'm really glad, very fortunate that I made the decision at that time to leave there and start my jiu-jitsu journey. So I would go back and do it all over the same way a million times to, be where I am right now, and to have experienced all the wonderful things and all the great relationships that have come about through jiu-jitsu. I would go through all that 1,000 times over.
So I have no doubt that when you were training karate, you trained really hard and you gave it a lot of thought, because you're just that kind of guy.
Definitely.
How much did that help you with your jiu-jitsu journey, starting with a really solid grounding in karate? I mean, the movements aren't the same. The techniques aren't the same.
I think the karate instilled a lot of things in me, as far as a lot of the good principles that you take away from training in traditional martial arts, as far as the self-discipline and knowing how to push yourself, knowing how to train hard and stay focused, and all of those aspects. And I also think it was a good lesson in at the time, I didn't know that I would end up teaching jiu-jitsu. I think I learned a lot teaching at the karate school that I translated over when I eventually started teaching jiu-jitsu. So I definitely, I don't.
So what did you translate over teaching wise? Like, obviously not a technique, but you're talking the teaching methods?
Yeah, I think the structure, the sense of structure and having some form of guidelines and rules that you follow, a code, so to speak. I think that's something that's missing in a lot of jiu-jitsu schools. So my jiu-jitsu school, we're not super traditional, but we do have guidelines and rules that we follow and certain, principles that I maintain when I run my academy. For example, you can't just show up 20 minutes late and walk out onto the mat and join into the middle of class.
Okay.
So it's not a club. It's an actual school. And I see a lot of jiu-jitsu schools that are more ran like jiu-jitsu clubs, where people show up when they want, leave when they want, show up with a gi on or with no gi stuff, even if it's a gi class, all of these types of things. So I think having a little sense of structure just provides a little bit better training atmosphere and gives a consistent message to everybody. So those are some of the things that I took away, just having, basic principles in place. But, I don't force my students to bow on and off the mat and things like that. We do line up at the beginning and end of class and bow in and out, but that's about as traditional as it gets in the sense of traditional martial arts.
So if I ever don't get stymied by a snowstorm, hailstorm, and a flipped over butane tanker trailer, you're saying that when I come and visit you at your school, I won't see guys in, shirts off and Speedos trying to, crush people in the gi class.
No, absolutely not. You might see those guys in open mat, because open mat they can do gi or no gi, but as far as a structured class, you won't see anybody wearing the plum smugglers out there crushing the gi guys. And grabbing their gi even though they're doing no gi. Yes,
that's always a nice asymmetry.
Yeah.
You've competed both gi and no gi.
Yeah, I have. It's I think the last time I competed no gi was back in 2014 at one of the 5 grappling tournaments. I did the no gi division there. So,
do you have a preference?
I love both. I love all things grappling. So while I don't train no-gi as much, it's for me, it's an easy transition. I come from the days where, we would do a full gi class and train for 2 hours, and then we would take off our gi tops and continue training after the class, and that was no-gi training. So there wasn't this big distinction between the two and making them completely different. It was all just jiu-jitsu or grappling to us back in those days. So I'm very comfortable with both aspects, and I love different things about both of them. As somebody that trains with the gi a lot, I feel when you take the gi off, I feel like, man, I feel even better. I feel so much quicker and slipperier and a lot less things slowing you down. So I think if you have sharp technique with the gi, the transition is pretty seamless. And I think training with the gi forces you to have a lot more awareness. So, and it also keeps you from relying on being slippery and maybe forming some bad habits that you do when you only train without the gi. When you train with the gi on, you don't have that benefit always of being slippery and yanking your arm out of places and things. You have to be aware of a lot more things because there's so many different ways your partner can use your uniform against you. So I think it heightens your awareness and really fine tunes and tightens up your technique. And when you do take that gi off, it shouldn't be the end of the world. If your gi game is solely dependent on lapels and feeding lapels around your legs and all of these things, and that's your only means of retaining guard or slowing your partner down, then you may have a problem.
So talking things like the spider guard or the worm guard.
Yeah, well,
stuff.
Things that are strictly dependent that you have to have a gi to do them. If that is all your game is, your jiu-jitsu, your gi game is based off of, then you're going to have trouble in no gi. But if you have a good understanding of the fundamentals in your training, jiu-jitsu that works with or without the gi, then you're going to have an easy transition into no gi. I play all of that stuff. I think the worm guard's cool. I think all that crazy lapel feeding and everything else is awesome. You have so many different ways of attacking and slowing down your partner, but I also believe in the strong fundamentals of jiu-jitsu. The jiu-jitsu I teach, you can make a very minor adjustment and it'll work just as well without the gi. So I think that's important for people to focus on having good, solid, fundamental jiu-jitsu and then incorporating all that other cool stuff that you can do. That's the frosting on the cake. That shouldn't be what your whole game is comprised of.
So how different is your A game in gi jiu-jitsu and your A game in no gi jiu-jitsu? The A game that you're going to be unleashing at the Pan-Ams soon.
Mm-hmm.
How different would that be if you were going to be competing at the ultra heavy EBIs?
I do pretty much all the same things in no gi that I do with the gi. So there's not really a lot of positions I play with the gi that can't be translated to no gi with just a change in grip placement or where I'm holding. So that's why when I'm trying to encourage my students to practice no gi, I'm like, have them watch me roll during open mat without the gi on and go, look, what did I do? Did I do anything completely different than my normal game? Well, no, coach, you did all the same things. You just kind of changed your grips and things. So I think it shouldn't be this, you shouldn't have to have a completely different game to adapt from gi to no gi.
I wonder how much of the divergence, because there is somewhat of a divergence between the gi game and the no gi game, and there are a couple different reasons for it. I mean, a lot of people attribute it to the presence of a uniform or the lack of a uniform, but I think it's actually more driven by the differences in the rule sets. You know, the leg reaping would be the most obvious example of a difference in the rule set.
Yeah, most definitely. And leg reaping takes away a lot of positions that guys are comfortable playing in sport jiu-jitsu. In other words, if you are allowed to reap the leg, there's a lot of different types of guards that people wouldn't play anymore in say an IBJJF tournament. Mm-hmm. 50-50 pretty much goes, let's say stalling in 50-50 pretty much goes out the window if you can reap and heel hook. It changes the whole game, right? So
it's a slightly more high intensity situation. Oh God, let me get to the heel hook before he does.
Yeah, and it's not somewhere you're just going to want to sit and run the clock out when your partner has the ability to be attacking you with heel hooks and different things from there. So it changes the dynamic quite a bit. And I think it's beautiful, though. I think it's all different forms of grappling. And my goal is to be as complete as possible in regards to all forms of grappling. I don't want to just be pigeonholed as a jiu-jitsu guy or a gi guy, no gi guy, self-defense guy. I think you should be out there learning everything that is practical and good. If it's good technique and you can add it to your game and it works well for you, I think that's how we become complete and have the best overall understanding of jiu-jitsu and grappling. So I don't like all the different labels. I think labels are mainly used for marketing purposes, and also labels are used a lot of times for people to make themselves feel better about different inadequacies that they have in their grappling or their jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was about to make a wise ass crack about you. If that's true, then you should start Seattle's first Turkish oil wrestling.
Yeah, there you go.
School, or have that as a class, or some.
That would be amazing. the cleanup on the mats, though, that has to be that might be bad.
Well, you'd charge a premium. It'd be 3 times as expensive as a regular a regular class.
You might be onto something.
Yeah, well, we're full of good ideas today.
I'm sure there's some kind of beneficial technique we can glean from Turkish oil wrestling,
or at least softer skin and exfoliation or something.
I was teasing my friend Orlando Sanchez because he posted a thing the other day where if anybody can score a point on me today, I'm gonna give him $100, and I said. Well, then later on, he posted a picture of him laying there wearing spats and no shirt, and he looked all sweaty and greasy. And I said, "Oh, that's no wonder you were so confident. You oiled yourself up like Turkish oil wrestling." And I said, "No wonder nobody could score a point on you."
It's just amazing the different forms of grappling and all the different cultures. I've actually got a series of articles going on grapplearts.com about, the wrestling of Asia, or the different forms of grappling in Asia, the different forms of wrestling and grappling in Europe, in the British Isles, in the Americas. And I'm just about to publish one about the different forms of grappling in Polynesia and Oceania. I think that's the word I pronounce it, Oceania. And essentially, if you leave a bunch of people alone for long enough, they'll figure out some form of wrestling. The rules might change, and hey, let's, smear oil all over everything. Or, or hey, let's do it starting on our knees. Or hey, let's do it and continue to the ground and try and submit the person. But it's a very, very primal human activity.
Yeah, and if you watch animals, you always see, I know, I'm not ashamed of being a crazy cat person, I guess some people would call me. I have 5, my wife and I have 5 rescued cats. And when you watch cats wrestle around, it looks like jiu-jitsu.
I was just in a pet store with my daughter the other day, successfully resisting her attempts to lobby me into buying a bunch of cats. But I think every jiu-jitsu guy's gone through that, like watching the cats tear around at the pet store and go,
yeah.
He's using the guard.
Yeah, they invert. They use their legs to control the distance. I mean, it's crazy to watch. So, like you said, it's something very primal, and it comes naturally.
You would think there'd be some worm guard potential there using their tail. Yes. I have not yet seen that.
They don't have a prehensile tail, so it might be a little more difficult for them to control. Monkeys, certain kinds of monkeys would be able to do that.
I think this is well worth spending an entire podcast discussing the monkey grappling.
The development of monkey jiu-jitsu.
Well, I guess there's monkey kung fu back in the day. There was that guy, Paulie Zink, I remember his name. He was in every second issue of Inside Kung Fu, hopping around, being a monkey, and I so wanted to train it. I thought this was da bomb.
It's amazing. Yeah, I was into all that stuff as a kid. I was looking at all the different styles, and I remember watching all the martial arts movies and begging my parents for years to let me train and get into something. And finally, when I was 10 years old, that's when I started karate, and I guess the rest is history. But going back to what we were saying about, different cultures and in different times, all these different forms of grappling developing. Was it you who posted the video today of somebody in judo using like modern jiu-jitsu guards?
No, not.
Okay. Well,
you have got to send me that link because that would be really interesting to see.
Yeah, it just showed up on my feed this morning. I didn't get a chance to look at the full video, but it was like in early 1900s, or maybe forget the date. It might have been in 1950 or earlier, but it was showing these judo players using like De La Riva guard and all these different positions that are attributed to more modern jiu-jitsu. So it was really interesting to see that they were playing around with a lot of the concepts way back when.
Well, the International Judo Federation got rid of that stuff pretty quick.
Oh,
didn't they?
Yeah. And a lot of other very effective, cool things.
Yeah. Talk about the rules driving the evolution of a sport. I don't think there's a more... I bitch and moan sometimes about what the IBJJF does, mostly in the context of the leg stuff, but it's nothing compared to how the International Judo Federation micromanages and completely changes the sport every few years.
Well, and that all started happening when they got judo into the Olympics, so that's why I kind of cringe when people really want to see Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the Olympics. I'm afraid it might go in that direction where they start, doing similarly to the IBJJF and paring a lot of things down and watering down a lot of the things, a lot of the tools that we have at our disposal.
Well, I think the first set of rule changes that I became aware of, I'm sure there were others before, was when the Russian sambo players started entering the judo tournaments and, the Judo Olympics and doing things like flying arm bars and the crazy over the back throws and the huge sacrifice suplexy type stuff. And then all of a sudden, okay, no more flying arm bars. Okay, no more flying this. No more.
Yeah, a lot of
grips.
A lot of the rules changes in judo have been based off of what our opponents from other countries were getting us with. Yes. So I was talking to a judo player the other day who, when I say judo player, he's one of my black belts in jiu-jitsu, but he did judo for a long time. And he was saying that a lot of the rules changes were driven by, things that our opponents were doing to us that we were having trouble countering.
Yes.
And now I think one of the most recent ones was they can't, use two hands to break the grip off the collar, right? And then before that, it was they can't do any takedowns involving grabbing the legs,
even touching the legs.
Yeah,
like brushing the legs with your hand, and you're out on your ass.
Right. So it's funny if you watch a lot of Ronda Rousey's old judo matches. She did a lot of takedowns involving, grabbing the legs and things, and so all that stuff's out the window. And
it's in the original judo curriculum. If you look at like the Gokyo, there are lots of techniques there. Like this is the original sacred, I think it's 67 throws that Jigoro Kano laid down.
Right.
Probably got the number wrong. And but a lot of those throws are illegal now because it would involve touching the legs. So they're actually willing to even sacrifice parts of their own history in order to not let it go and change from this imagined ideal. One of
my female students started training in judo to supplement her jiu-jitsu and learn some more takedowns. And one of the first few classes she was in, because I show the grip break using two hands to break the grip off the collar, and she they were doing grip breaks, and she broke the person's grip using two hands, and the instructor came over and said, no, you can't use two hands to do that. And my student didn't know why, and she was kind of like, well, why, it's too effective. That was the answer she was given. It's like, she was like, well, thinking to ourselves, isn't that why you would do it? Because we want to do what's effective? Yeah, but it's against the rules. I thought that was kind of funny. Let's not do the thing that's most effective. Let's make it more difficult.
Well, once again, it's the rule set driving the sport. I mean, jiu-jitsu would be let's imagine we had jiu-jitsu with all the same techniques and all the same rules and all the same scoring, but you're allowed to carry a knife and use it.
Right.
At that point, jiu-jitsu, like, that's just one small little rule change, one itsy-bitsy little rule change.
That changes everything.
Yes.
Yep.
So it's amazing the power of, one little rule change. No grabbing the legs, no two-handed grip breaks. I guess you don't know in advance. I gotta say, I mean, yes, I'm on record for complaining about the leg reaping rule in IBJJ,
right.
But generally they've done a pretty good job of not trying to micromanage the sport too much when you compare it to other sports.
Yeah, for the most part, and a lot of their rules can be justified through documented injuries that they keep on record. So in other words, I think one of the rules changes was where the person goes for a single leg with their head on the outside, right, and the guy tries to lay back and toss them. Yeah. But people were getting spiked on their head instead of rolling through and getting swept and getting neck injuries. So that was the justification for them making that rules change I believe they made that one just for white belts. I'm not sure. But, usually a lot of the things they do are based off of safety concerns. But I think when you get into the black belt level, I mean, we should have enough training. We know what we're getting ourselves into when we go in there, that you could leave a little more room for the quote unquote dangerous positions and techniques.
So are we talking things like a flying scissor takedown, the Kani Basami? Are we talking things like heel hook? Is that what you're lobbying for if you could make changes to the IBJJF rule set?
Well, when I go in, I compete under whatever rule set I'm given, and I know that going in. So I'm not, I never really complain about the rules, but I don't think there would be anything wrong with allowing the leg reaping. Obviously, styles at the black belt level, that is, where we should have the control and the intelligence to tap if we need to, and all these different things. Other styles that practice a lot of leg locks use that position with, from what I understand, minimal injury resulting from it because they train and specialize in that area. So I don't think it would be the end of the world if they added that in, but I think it would create
leg reaping, but not necessarily heel hooking.
Well, I think they could add heel hook too. I wouldn't be opposed to that at the black belt level. I think if you're a black belt and you agree to enter under that rule set, you should have the knowledge and skill to play that game. My only concern with heel hooks comes because everybody says, oh, just tap. All you need to do is tap. Well, as well as I do, if the guy keeps turning your heel for a couple more seconds after you tap, that can be the difference between it popping and not popping.
Sure.
So that's my only concern, is you would have the rare occasion where the guy doesn't let go in time and somebody gets their knee hurt. But again, there's a lot of other things in jiu-jitsu that if the guy holds on for a couple seconds longer is going to result in a bad injury as well. So, I mean, an arm bar obviously is very dangerous as well if somebody holds it on after you tap. Any joint lock, the couple seconds difference in them stopping, makes a big difference. So maybe I don't know. What do you think is the determining factor there on something attacking the knee joint versus another joint in the body? I mean,
Well, I think an ACL is a big surgery.
It's the severity of the injury, right?
Right.
That's kind of the, a broken wrist, a broken arm. But, a shoulder, a torn rotator resulting from a kimura could be just as lengthy of a recovery as an ACL, if not more. So
I agree. It's a more complex joint.
I guess it depends on where you want to draw the line. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Now they're going to ban kimuras and omoplatas.
Well, I think maybe it's an interesting question. Why are kimuras legal and why are heel hooks illegal? Maybe part of the answer is that the difference between applying a heel hook, if you have me on a heel hook, James, and you're not applying it versus applying it, it's a tiny little movement.
Yeah, whereas
a kimura is a little bit bigger movement.
Yeah, there's more range of motion there, I guess.
Yeah. And I suppose it's also tradition. I mean, ultimately the answer is it's tradition.
It's because leg locks are the dark arts.
Yes. Come to the dark side.
Speaking of the dark arts, I was teasing my student, we're going to go learn the dark arts from Eddie Bravo. In April, I'm going to go to my first ever Eddie Bravo seminar. So I'm pretty excited about that. That goes along with, what I was saying, being open and willing to learn from everybody and not put labels on things. I'm really looking forward to what details I can take away that will benefit my overall understanding of jiu-jitsu and grappling.
Well, if it's on the rubber guard, I hope you're doing lots of stretching.
Oh, I'm too flexible for a big guy. I'm more flexible than I should be, so I think I'll be okay on if we do any of the hover guard, as my friend Hinata Laranja would say. As long as he doesn't try to make me smoke heifer and doesn't get too crazy on his
crop testers and
Tower 7 Illuminati conspiracy, chemtrail theories. As long as the seminar is about jiu-jitsu or grappling, I'll be just fine.
Yeah, because he generally backs down from arguments about those things, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he sticks to when he teaches seminars, he sticks to teaching jiu-jitsu. He doesn't bring any of that into it, but he is interesting and funny listening, like when he's on Joe Rogan's podcast and stuff. I always enjoy kind of listening to the discussions on there.
Well, I listened to his podcast that they had Alex Jones, the guy from InfoWars.
Oh, man. And that was crazy. I did you listen or did you watch the YouTube version?
I listened as I was driving, and
you need to actually watch it on YouTube so you can see the mannerisms and the.
Oh, good Lord! I don't know. Aliens from another dimension influencing Hillary Clinton's pedophilia ring through a pizza joint. Give me a break. Give me a break.
They got him all hopped up on the devil's lettuce.
And let him go. It's a total setup.
Joe Rogan, gave him some weed, and he was drinking whiskey, and he got even more wacky and out there than he normally is.
Revved up his conspiracy theory creation machine, and there, I've lost every single conspiracy theorist who listens to the podcast. Are going to be, no, Tower 7 was involved with, the corporations ruling the world for hundreds of thousands of years, and Atlantis, and...
So you're saying you don't believe that the Earth's flat?
Yes, I'm a rounder. I'm coming out.
You're a round earther.
I'm a round earth conspiracist. There are undoubtedly conspiracy theories in the world. There have undoubtedly been conspiracies. Whoever burnt the Reichstag down, if it was the Nazis who burned down the Reichstag in order to take control of Germany in the 30s, that was a conspiracy. That was a bunch of guys sitting around in a smoky room or in a bottom of a beer hall going, Weaver burns that down and Weaver blames the communists. That is a good idea. that by definition is a conspiracy. You know, the Gulf of Tonkin thing, that is a conspiracy.
Yeah, there's been a lot over the years.
Sure.
But when you get into things that are easily dismissible through science and different things, I don't know. It's interesting to see how passionate people are about it.
Well, I think ultimately, I heard conspiracy theorists explain once this way, and it's if you know something that nobody else knows, or you're part of a very small group of people who know something, then it gives you power. Right? It gives you significance because you're the person, you know the truth about the moon.
True, yeah. You can own that.
Yeah. And it gives your life meaning to rant about how the moon landing was fake or the moon is hollow and is a base.
We didn't even go to space. We haven't even been in space. If you know.
Alternately, there were
I don't know if you.
There were two moon landing. There was the official moon landing and there was a fake moon landing. And we know about the fake moon landing.
Yeah, we didn't even go to space. The Earth is flat. Mm. And then you say, well, how do you explain the curvature of the Earth when?
Oh, how do you? I don't know how the flat earthers explain the curvature of the Earth.
GoPro, wide angle lens, distorting it so it looks rounded.
Oh, weird. Well, I guess, when Columbus and those people.
You know all that GoPro footage they have from, 50 years ago of things going up into the atmosphere and showing but they say,
I've heard that one explained.
It's a fisheye lens or wide angle lens.
I've heard that one explained, and the footage of the moon explained, that the government is 20, 30 years ahead of Hollywood in terms of CGI. So you can just, obviously in 1969, 2 weeks after I was born, when they had Neil Armstrong hopping around on the moon, that's just that era's CGI. So
what you're saying is NASA should have done the Tarkin recreation in Rogue One. It would have been indistinguishable.
Indistinguishable. So, yeah, because they're struggling for funding. So if they would just release some of that CGI technology, they could fund, forget mission to Mars. We're talking mission to Pluto.
They're holding out on us.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, in the spirit of things imaginary, I was going to ask you, what's your favorite comic book of all time? That's how we'll wrap it up here.
Favorite comic book of all time? Yeah. More of a current one. I'm a huge fan of Invincible by Image Comics.
Okay.
Great storyline, and also has my favorite artist, the artist named Ryan Otley, that draws it. So, yeah, I would have to say Invincible.
Okay. I've just torn through Sandman a second time.
Oh, so Sandman's great. Yeah. Those are all classic. If it was like classic stuff like Watchmen and stuff like that would be high up there on my list. Yeah,
I think it would be a toss-up between Watchmen and Sandman for me. And that's classic stuff. I haven't kept up with it.
As far as
stuff.
Yeah, like modern stuff, for me, Invincible is the one that I always read. And I mean, it's into the hundreds of issues that have been out, and I've read it since the beginning. So
okay, well, there you have your hot tip, folks.
That's a big one.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, James. It's been a really fun chat. Hopefully it's not the last time.
Hey, I'd love to come on again, and I'd love to have you on my podcast again.
All right. We'll make it a regular thing.
All right, my friend. You take care.
Take care.